The terrorist attack that occurred in Minneapolis a day ago. For over a year, we've had the right-wing racists trying to brand Black Lives Matters a hate group through endless repetition. Fortunately, the movement stuck to their guns and dug in. So the right wing's campaign to smear Black Lives Matters hasn't worked. Fraudulent hit pieces trying to tie the death of a cop, any cop, to Black Lives Matters has no legs. And now it's been made unequivocally clear Black Lives Matters are not the problem. The white supremacists are. Protesters in Minneapolis demanding accountability for the killing of Jamar Clark took up vigil in front of the Minneapolis PD's 4th precinct. But over the last few days, the peaceful protesters had been monitored and stalked by various white supremacist terrorists. The white terrorists took to the internet and posted death threats in text and in videos. They made it clear that white supremacy had been sustaining too many losses as of late, and they needed to strike a blow. They bragged that they were going to try to set off some sort of confrontation. The protesters saw a handful of white men wearing masks. As it turned out, they also had bulletproof vests and guns. These white terrorists are also videotaping the protesters and made taunting remarks towards them. The protesters had already announced that due to the security concerns, no one was allowed to have on any masks. So they told the white terrorists to remove their masks or to remove themselves. They refused. The protesters then proceeded to escort the white gunman away from the rally. Keep in mind, all of this is happening only a few yards from the police precinct station. As the protesters moved the terrorists away, the white terrorists realized their opportunity to launch a Dylan Roof-style attack was slipping away, so they proceeded to open fire on the crowd. 5 people were shot. The white terrorists then fled the scene. Some of the white supremacists are now feebly attempting to jumpstart some sort of self-defense narrative, claiming that the terrorists were only protecting themselves from a vicious mob beating. I would remind you that one of his rallies this week, Donald Trump supporters viciously attacked a man just for wearing a Black Lives Matter shirt. And when asked about it, Donald Trump himself said that he deserved to get roughed up. The justification being that he was an unwelcome interloper who party crashed one of their rallies, and hence they had the right to eject him with any level of force that they chose. How funny, because I see this instance the exact same way. And the Minneapolis police? Nowhere to be seen for several minutes. Gunshots right outside of the police precinct house, and the cops were not concerned. Now, you would think that to have a volley of gunshots right outside a police precinct, the cops would immediately rush out, armed to the teeth. After all, cops were already stationed outside of the protest line for exactly that reason, right? As we all know, at these rallies, the police will have plainclothes officers infiltrate the crowd. There were undoubtedly numerous Minneapolis police and sheriff's deputies in the crowd watching and observing. So why did not one of them react? With the ultra-violent hate group Black Lives Matters gathered right in front of their precinct, you'd think the cops would be watching the scene like hawks. To let Fox News tell it Black Lives Matters has killed every cop in America. So why would the cops, having heard a fusillade of gunfire and screaming crowds, still be inside the precinct for several minutes on end?
2 nights ago, I came out, everything was fine, people were socializing, eating, just communing as normal, and then a police officer comes and pokes his head over the precinct walls. This officer had on a ski mask. Ski mask very similar to the gunman. He poked his head around, he looked at the scene, saw what was going on. Less than 30 minutes after this officer with the ski mask that was poking his head over the precinct, these gunmen showed up, who at the time, we didn't know who they were. They had on ski masks. They came up. We don't allow people to have on ski masks anymore because of the threats that we've been getting. Numerous Black Lives Matters representatives and NAACP heads have received death threats. So we've just been taking precautions when it comes to who is coming to the precinct. A number of African-American males went over to the guys and, basically asked them, what are you here for? If you're going to be here, you have to take off your mask. The gunmen were not cooperative, and so the African-American males proceeded to walk them away. Mind you, these are our heroes, because there was a child that was 3 years old, another child that was 8 years old right beside me. We were less than 25 feet away from the gunman, but it almost seemed like it was like a plot, or they were luring them down the street away so then the police officers could say that they didn't see anything, when in actuality they heard the shots just like I heard the shots. There were over 10 shots fired. The police officers didn't do anything. It seemed like they could have been in cahoots. They didn't do anything when it came over the precinct. They just looked.
Now I want to turn to the communications chair of the Minneapolis NAACP, Raisha Williams. Speaking to CNN host Brooke Baldwin, Williams suggests members of law enforcement were behind the Monday night shooting of Black Lives Matter protesters.
We know from blackboards and from chat rooms and also videos that we have posted on our website that police that are from different counties, police from different districts have come down to entice the protesters, have come down to bully the protesters.
I understand you are there in Minneapolis and you know much more about this, but those are serious allegations you are just laying down on national television.
And we are standing behind it. We do not back down from these allegations.
Right. Well, you know, the police came swarming in from the same areas that the gunmen fled into. Like I said, they took their precious time. So I do agree with her. And then when I was actually on the ground and I saw those police officers come over the precinct for the first time with a ski mask on that looked exactly like the people that ended up being the gunmen, it's like, how do you not make the correlation? And then when they didn't come to help these men, it seemed like they were in cahoots. I cannot say for sure. I know that they did it, but the belief is definitely there. And the people that were there, we definitely feel like the police could have definitely had something to do with it. In addition, the gentlemen who all got shot were the same ones who were like in the front lines of the protests out there every day, fussing with the police officers, telling them that they were doing an injustice. So I just don't think that those are all coincidences.
I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I know that more than one coincidence is no longer a coincidence. The Minneapolis police wore face masks, just like the white terrorists. They wore bulletproof vests, just like the white terrorists. They carried guns, just like the white terrorists. The cops did not seem surprised or shocked like the protesters were. According to eyewitnesses, the cops were very nonchalant about it all, as if they had been expecting it. And when I see men who go to a public gathering but wear apparel that is meant to be deliberately different than everyone else there, that smells to me like cops who want to make sure they can readily identify one another. Not to say that's definitely what happened here, but we'd be fools to discount it. Consider this. One of the terrorists called a friend immediately after the attack, a friend who was a police officer who he'd known since high school. The protesters have already mentioned that the terrorist had been receiving support from police and sheriff's deputies in the surrounding area, and their subsequent confessions bears this out. This would hardly be the first time the police killed someone in cold blood, hardly the first time the police got hired thugs to do their dirty work. Cops in both New York, Los Angeles, and New Orleans have been caught getting criminals to kill innocent people on their behalf. So there's nothing new about this at all. I have noticed a rather gratifying development. In the comments sections of videos or articles dealing with the Minneapolis massacre, you have a lot of racist trolling going on. What's so gratifying about it is I think even the white supremacists are finally realizing their impotence. Sure, they're talking, but nobody's listening anymore. Right-wing hate radio has taught these empty-headed clowns to mindlessly repeat what Hannity or Limbaugh or O'Reilly says, because that's all these low IQ, low information troglodytes are good for. They can mindlessly parrot whatever ridiculous talking point they heard on Fox, but they can't think worth a damn. So they repeat Black Lives Matter is violent without realizing that they don't point to any actual incidents of violence on the part of BLM. The masses of Americans who are not part of the Fox News fringe are not stupid. The people can see the cops racking up the body count, and they can see Black Lives Matter does not. Even if they aren't necessarily ardent supporters of BLM, even if they don't particularly like them, at the end of the day, BLM has not hurt anyone. The anti-Black Lives Matters crowd, however, has. That's why the very next day after the shooting, the crowd supporting Black Lives Matters was larger, yes, larger than the one the night before. It shouldn't surprise anyone that the white supremacists are attempting to fight this PR war through the comment sections on videos and news stories. They don't have any popular support. You've never seen an All Lives Matter rally numbering in the thousands or even hundreds, and you're not going to. The clowns who carpet bomb message boards with the same copy and paste racist talking points are the same types of cowards who attack that rally. They are a crazed tiny fringe, and that's why you see them lashing out violently. They're losing, and they know it. Using the big lie method of repeat the lie until it sticks worked for George Zimmerman and Darren Wilson, but those idiots should have noticed it stopped working about the time of Eric Garner, and the whole "the black guy is to blame" strategy died with Walter Scott. Sure, they can still say it, white supremacists love to hear themselves talk, but no one is listening. 6 months ago, it was all but impossible to get a cop charged, even with videotape, but after Ferguson and Baltimore, at least videotape can be effective. The white supremacist DAs realize that trying to use the grand jury to bury a prosecution isn't a tactic they can use anymore. They will try to front-load juries with white people eager to let killer cops off the hook, but this too will fall to the law of diminishing returns. As we keep telling you, every victory fuels the next victory, and every defeat fuels the next defeat. A side note here, it's no accident that Black Authority chose to hold Black Empowerment 1 in Chicago. At the Black Channel, we've long been watching the events in the Windy City. We more or less knew things were coming to a head there and wanted to establish a beachhead beforehand. The point that I'm trying to make is, as black people, we are not supposed to be taking our cues from the mainstream media. We are supposed to be reading the tea leaves on our own. The media should be following us, not the other way around. And as I told you in the video about the white supremacists arrested for threatening the Missouri University students, it's young white men who are acting as the foot soldiers for white supremacy today. Now we see the proliferation of so-called white student unions across college campuses. You know, years ago, white punks at Texas A&M called themselves protesting affirmative action by selling cookies with different prices based on race. That didn't go anywhere either, by the way. And while these bits of pathetic social theater may not be effective, they are significant because they show you how crazy the white terrorists are becoming. They are at one moment claiming to be the victims of discrimination, and the very next moment shooting into crowds of unarmed black demonstrators. The societal tide is beginning to move against them. Unlike the 60s, they won't be able to offer any integration distractions. People are going to want the white terrorist to surrender some real power this time, and they know it. So be on your guard. The white supremacists are no longer leaving it up to the cops to do the killing. They're taking matters into their own hands now, and with the police's support, they will be killing more people unless we're prepared for them. At least in Minneapolis, they didn't do like the naive souls in Charleston did. Yes, the last month or so has been one big run-on embarrassment for white terrorists, so much so that when the Minneapolis story broke, Fox News didn't dare cover it. We've got the momentum. Now we need to turn it into initiative. The next step is to wage war on white terrorist DAs and judges, the judicial co-conspirators of white terrorism, the ones who give the white terrorists legal immunity and who have weaponized the legal system in order to attack citizens like Laquan McDonald and Jamar Clark. You need to identify who the white terrorist DA or judges are in your area. We can't bring the bastards down unless we know who they are. Watching videos and amening this or that person isn't enough. The white terrorists have created an echo chamber, and it's been effective because they are all behind it. They aren't spectators, they're participants. That's why even though they number a tiny fraction, they've been able to achieve disproportionate results, at least until lately. The reason thug was exposed as a racist code word is because there were enough black people in new media who told the truth about that word until it finally permeated to those in the greater society. When Rupert Murdoch made Gods and Kings, it flopped at the box office because for years now people like myself have been making videos exposing white Egypt as a big white lie, so much so that it permeated the greater society. My video on blackface in white and yellow was influential enough that it was ripped off by those in the mainstream media. And my video telling the truth about Robert Mugabe has changed the media narrative. This is the power of a sufficient group of people stepping across the line. Now imagine if there had been other videos as well tackling the same subjects. We have a voice, and it is powerful, but what we really need is a force multiplier, and that means you. When a video like this goes up, it needs to be echoed in a few dozen other places, immediately. This isn't about money. My channel isn't monetized, nor do I want it to be. If you decide not to mirror my video, then at least mirror the video's message, because this is about taking control of the societal narrative. And this is how we do it. So let the white supremacists scream and rage in the comment sections. Let them throw around whatever bullcrap talking point they picked up on Stormfront or Fox News today. They can repeat it until they turn blue in the face. It doesn't matter, because they no longer matter. The old "the facts haven't come out yet" deflection is played out. Even Sean Hannity has been burned enough times that he's stopped using that one. We're not debating these idiots, and we won't. You know why? Because power doesn't respect weakness. Power only respects power.